See how much fun we have?
Even with an entirely new backstory for the killer doll and an intriguing cast, the reboot of Child's Play feels derivative and unnecessary in all the ways that the 1988 cult classic felt fresh and boundary-pushing. It's not that Child's Play is a bad film, it's just that it often feels more like a lesser episode of Black Mirror than a reimagining of one of the most well-known and popular horror franchises of all time. Much of this comes from the creative team's decision to change the origin of the killer doll from being possessed by a serial killer to simply being an out-of-control and evil AI. From the moment this plot point was revealed, many fans asked, why make it a Chucky film at all? Sadly, at no point does the film answer that question. And it would have been better as a sci-fi horror B-movie on its own merits rather than a story which often writes itself into a corner trying to fit in the box left by its predecessor and his pop culture riffing brand.
Buddy can connect to and control all of your Caslin products and smart home devices.
Just like the original, the new film begins with the origin of the doll, which, for spoilers' sake here, we'll call a manufacturing defect. After that, we're introduced to Andy and his mother Karen, who is still a poor single mother attempting to provide for her young son, but the character is changed as she's also now a neglectful but loving mom with bad taste in men. The other major change here is that Andy is 13. It's a narrative choice that never really pays off aside from enabling an It, Stranger Things style kids team up later on in the film. Andy and Karen's neighbor, Brian Tyree Henry's Detective Mike, is easily the best and most fun character in the ensemble, although he's also a very, very bad detective. Chucky, voiced by Mark Hamill,
Hi, are you my best buddy?
is a different beast from Brad Dourif's Charles Lee Ray as a home help bot who can connect to all the Caslin tech in their small apartment and the wider world. The ever-encroaching reach of the Amazon-esque Caslin is hard to ignore as it quickly becomes clear that they're making literally everything. However, the near-future world building never really goes any further than that. At first, Andy's new friend is just that, a companion in the lonely young boy's world, and it works relatively well. But ironically, the fact that the film admirably uses mostly practical puppetry for the Buddy doll makes him so creepy that it's hard to believe Andy could make a connection with him.
Chucky?
It's odd that the setup is so hard to believe when it's actually far more believable than the original film's concept of a serial killer transferring his spirit into a plastic doll. In 2019, it shouldn't be too hard to buy into an evil high-tech robot turning into a psycho killer. But the problem in Child's Play is less to do with the idea and more to do with the execution, which feels derivative and overdone. Chucky's motivations have already been better explored in The Twilight Zone, The Simpsons, and Erie, Indiana. Tonally, the film is relatively creepy, though the first two acts are strangely paced, taking up far too much of the short 90-minute runtime. There are a couple of entertaining, if dragged-out, kills that will please horror fans, but the questionable moral message of the film gets confused as it hits the third act. Still, that third act is easily the best part of the movie, and will likely lead to the film finding a very specific cult audience. This is mostly due to the fact that out of nowhere, it completely leans into a previously unseen dark humor that riffs on the best offerings of the classic franchise without seeming unoriginal, delivering a far too brief chunk of gory, inventive, and hilarious salvation before the credits roll. Yet the film never manages to recreate the paranoia, fear, and literal horror of the original that was really the '88 movie's biggest achievement. You should have never been scared of Chucky, but you always were.
Friends to the end, remember?
Child's Play is fine, but it would have been far better had it not been packaged in the iconic overalls of the still ongoing horror franchise. The film is always at its strongest when it's not trying to fit into the world of Child's Play and could have been a real piece of B-movie magic had it been an original sci-fi horror flick instead of a retread of a far better film. For more movie reviews, check out what we thought of Toy Story 4 and Men in Black International, and as always, be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you like to watch IGN.